Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Geek View Podcast, episode 5, 6. It's been a while since we've done the last episode, so I honestly can't remember.
Five.
Do you think it's 5?
Something like that. I know I missed the Marvel one. I don't know if you did a video game one or something.
No, I'm gonna record the video game one pretty soon. But yeah, as of now, I think it's just the Marvel one. That was the last one that we did.
All right.
So yeah. All right. So anyway, we're gonna be talking about Infinity War. We're gonna be talking about Deadpool. We're gonna be talking about Deadpool 2, and then we're gonna end it on Solo, which I've seen. You haven't seen that, Matt, right?
No, I have not. So I won't have as much of a input, but I'll try to say what I can from what I've heard.
Yeah. Like how to put this? Like, let's just jump right into Infinity War. I think that's a pretty solid idea if you go with it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like as usual, you go first. What were your thoughts on it? Like, hit me with everything.
Okay, so I mean, it's obviously been a while. I haven't seen it as much as you have, but definitely like going into it, I wasn't super into the whole idea. I heard that it was a pretty good movie, and usually I think the whole MCU thing kind of is like the idea that bothers me to just like generic origin story, generic villain, then generic sequel. Like I feel like a lot of it is kind of mundane, and even where it's like somewhat different. Like I do think Black Panther, while it was very much the same process, had a lot of new elements to it, which I thought made it a little more enjoyable. And I thought this, even though it was a big like, oh, everyone comes together to fight the bad guy, I thought they made Thanos an interesting and more compelling villain than we're used to seeing with these Marvel movies. Not like, oh, I'm just going to destroy the world and like I'm evil and I hate everyone and stuff. But he seemed like I didn't think his like premise was necessarily like the best intent. Like I thought it was a little bit of like trying to be unnecessarily like complicated. Like, oh, this guy, he wants to like wipe out half the population, but he'll save the other half. It's kind of like that kind of like hero's dilemma almost in a way where it's like it is good, but is it really? I thought that was kind of like a little bit like cheesy almost. I mean, it seemed like unnecessarily complicated. And the whole thing with him and Gamora to add like an emotional element to him that honestly you didn't really feel like you really cared too much at all. But I mean, other than that, I thought it was still a pretty entertaining movie. Like the fight scenes are really cool. It's nice to see, Spider-Man and Black Panther and their scenes, the witty banter, as you expect. But I still enjoyed it. Found it entertaining. I think it's anything you really ask for in a blockbuster movie. I think it was nearly 2.5 hours. I didn't really find there was a lull in it. Like I think the best thing you could say, like I don't think it was like a bad movie by any means. I thought it was very entertaining, and it didn't try to be anything it wasn't.
So I don't know, this might be the debate that we were looking for before while we were discussing, but I had a very different opinion on the movie. Like,
oh, interesting.
I really, really loved it. I don't know what was it about. Like, I think it was the fact that like they actually, when it went dark, I think, or it might have been the fact that from a writing perspective, they were willing to express the emotions that were required. Like they did not require quippy bant or like every other movie that they kind of do that thing where, during moments of absolute seriousness, there were times when someone would just crack a joke in the middle of a fight or something like that. And I always found that a little off-putting. And that's something that I did not see a lot of, or honestly, I barely saw anything like that throughout most of Infinity War. Yes, there were fights where, there was the obvious banter between, I don't know, Ebony Maw and like Iron Man or something like that. Like just the requirements that were there. But this felt pretty good from a writing perspective. I like that they actually went along with the emotions that were there. And that's one of the things that I liked. I loved Thanos though. Like I loved the way that they did the villain. I love that they kind of, because before this, he was always presented as like the overarching evil, where he could have just done the Roman thing. He could have just done like, I'm evil to be evil, or I'm evil because I need to wipe out someone else or something like that. But they went with a completely different approach of, there's a purpose behind why he's doing this. Like there's a purpose behind all of these different kinds of things. And I really like that. I thought that was fantastic. And like I think that just presented Thanos to me as like the best villain in the entire MCU. I used to think that the entire thing about Winter Soldier, where you're trying to face off against your own morals and things like that, that was kind of possibly the best villain. But Thanos took the title for me because of what was happening, like because of the way that they kind of did every single thing in that movie. Like I loved Infinity War to the point where it like kind of brought back, it reduced the amount of criticisms that I would usually give Marvel for a lot of their recent movies. So like this might be one of those times where I'm not the one who's kind of like trying to be a little bit of a buzzkill when it comes to Marvel movies, because I'm straight up fanboying over that movie. I went 3 times.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of a movie you definitely could see several times. And I mean, I definitely do agree that like I was impressed from what I saw, because usually I have to like definitely like what you're saying, like more of a cynical view of these movies because they're so formulaic. Mm-hmm. But I think I'll agree with you where it was definitely like a different take, and that Thanos was actually a more compelling villain than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Thinking of like recent movies we've seen, like I know with like I know a lot of things I've seen with like with Spider-Man Homecoming is that the Vulture was like a more compelling villain. It was just this world ender. He was like just his father trying to make ends meet and kind of gets lost along the way.
Yeah.
Or like Killmonger in Black Panther, where he was this guy who was motivated by rage and kind of this whole like black oppression type thing, which is like an entirely different like racial level to that. And also played by Michael B. Jordan, which is cool. Although I do think Josh Brolin's pretty sweet. I mean, I don't know. I just wasn't super blown away. I was like, wow, Thanos was like the coolest villain I've ever seen. But I mean, I still was entertained by it. Like I was like, I didn't mind spending money to see the movie, but it was definitely like, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like, I understand like it's successful because it's Marvel, but I don't know. And also like that whole Hulk side plot, I don't get what that was supposed to be about. I mean, that just seemed kind of like weird.
Yeah, like okay, I kind of get the Hulk part. The Hulk part was a little annoying. I don't know why that kind of kept happening. I don't know why they particularly did not want to bring him in throughout the entire movie. Like they were kind of just like, all right, we're just gonna leave him in Bruce Banner's form and everything like that. Maybe they're saving up for Avengers 4. I never understood the purpose behind it. But like, I totally bought the Thanos and Gamora thing. So like, I kind of bought it as like, these people are incredibly distant. They have a very strained relationship, but there was always like admiration and almost like a form of very weird paternal love from Thanos.
Yeah.
And like, kind of like, I don't know how to put it. Like, I kind of bought that aspect. I kind of bought the entire thing that like, he felt a severe sense of loss when it came to, throwing away Gamora or eventually like just killing Gamora because she was the only person he really ever cared about or something like that. Like you can clearly see that he had very little regard for Nebula, like the way that he would torture her and everything like that. So I don't know. I bought those things. I bought it kind of as like this person who sees that they're trying to, like, in no way is it justified behavior, but like you kind of get to see that where the villain comes from. And that's a hard thing to do in a superhero movie because it's so easy to go with the bombastic aspect of it. It's like I never watched like going in the first time I thought that this was going to be an Avengers film. Going in the second time I went in with the mindset that this is a movie, like this is a Thanos film with Avengers in it. Like,
true.
Like the character development throughout all of Infinity War is almost like it's almost non-existent when it comes to just the Avengers. But that's because it's like almost a solo piece about just Thanos. So it's just about Thanos changing from all the different things, like from going in with the mindset that everything that he's doing is right, to loss, to defeat, to like victory, but bittersweetness and things like that. Just like these different emotions that he played around with, the way that the character developed, like it's one of those reasons why I thought this was pretty fucking good. Like, just really well done in terms of the villain that they have.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say though was like, I mean, reason I think it's like it was definitely his story. Like you followed him around. You never necessarily felt like he was purely evil, which I think kind of is a nice plot where you're kind of I guess rooting for the Avengers, but you're also kind of like following this guy around. Like he's definitely like the main character of this entire movie.
Yeah.
But like even at the end, like where we talk about like, oh, like this is such a big loss to Gamora and like the stuff he gave up. Like in the end, he seems pretty like resolved that like he made the right decision. I mean, I guess that's kind of part of what he's supposed to be. That he like in the end, like even though he had to give up a lot, he knows what he did is right. But I don't know. It still seemed kind of like it wasn't as big of a loss. Like he did shed tears when she was like when he sacrificed her for the Soul Stone.
The Soul Stone, yeah, soul for a soul kind of thing. Like I know that they went along with that. Like that's something that they could have done differently. They could have done the Soul Stone in a different way or something like that. But I totally get why they went for that. They wanted that emotional appeal of it, and that's something that's inherently understandable.
Yeah, and I think also part of that understanding of him was, purely from hearing from Gamora's perspective through the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And honestly, I feel like in general, the Guardians of the Galaxy, like while they were kind of funny with their interaction with Thor, had a weird fit in the whole MCU.
Yeah.
Kind of abrupt almost, even though I didn't really mind it too much. It just seemed kind of out of nowhere in a way.
No, I think that was the thing where, in order to kind of develop Thanos throughout the movie, the fact that they have had this guy appearing in movies, in Marvel movies, since like 2012, or maybe even earlier. I don't know when the first appearance of Thanos takes place, but I definitely know that he was there in the Avengers at the end of the post-credit scene or whatever. So at least for over half a decade, this guy's been appearing in post-credit scenes or something like that, or short scenes in the middle of the movie. So I kind of understood, like not understood, but like I kind of saw that they sacrificed a lot of, I guess, character exposition, the way that characters are supposed to be, and things like that. They kind of went with the generic versions of the Avengers characters, what they developed earlier on. Like you don't see an overall lasting impact of all of the previous stuff that happened on Tony. He was still back to kind of like his Iron Man self.
Yeah, true.
So that's kind of the thing where they sacrificed a lot of stuff in order to build Thanos the way that they did, and that's why it was super fun to watch it in the movie when Peter and Peter Quill, Star Lord, and Thor are kind of going back and forth, and they're like trying to, I don't know, like macho fight each other. I don't know what the term is like. What am I trying to go for? Whatever the term is, like people know the scene that I'm talking about. And it felt very, almost like incredibly childish and out of place. Even though Star-Lord is a kind of a, overgrown kid kind of character, but like it still felt like this doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie. This doesn't really even fit in with the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are inherently like morons at times, but they're not stupid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely more the comic relief part. They went a little heavy. Like every now and then,
it felt very forced while watching the movie. That was definitely the case.
Yeah, like it got laughs. It was pretty funny, but like it definitely felt like a little out of place in the movie. Because the movie is long. Like I didn't think it felt too long, but it definitely was long. And I think some scenes could have gotten cut a little shorter. I mean, that probably could have been one of them.
I'd say it felt a good way to put it is like it didn't feel like a Marvel laugh. It felt like a Jackass laugh.
What do you mean, like the movie Jackass? Or are you just saying? Like,
yeah. No, not like a Jackass was laughing, but like it felt like the kind of humor felt a little bit more along the lines of like what Jackass, like the kind of things that the way that people would laugh to like something happening in Jackass, or the way that some people would laugh to something happening in like a kids movie. So like that was definitely one of the scenes where it felt like people laughed, but it's also because it was like just an easy jab at people.
Yeah. Also, one thing I'll say is that I think they did go a little overboard with the cameos. Like obviously you have them, like in a lot of movies that like to do that for fan service, but like the Red Skull cameo, kind of random. Not really something I hated, but random. Then Peter Dinklage, just like a giant, was like also surprisingly random.
Oh yeah, the Peter Dinklage one. I kind of forgot about it, but yeah, that was something that was unexpected. The Red Skull one, I kind of understood why they brought it in, because after Captain America, he kind of just disappeared. Like, hey, this guy vanished, and he never came back. So, yeah, no, I definitely get why they kind of went for the Red Skull thing. The Peter Dinklage one was, I think that was more along the lines of like, hey, look, we have Peter Dinklage in our movie, and the good thing is like they didn't. The Red Skull one was like obviously, it wasn't like a simple thing. They kind of had him looking like a Dementor or like the Nazgul or something like that, and then he reveals his face. But Peter Dinklage, they kind of tried to hide him a little bit.
Yeah, they wanted to be like that surprise, like, oh look, guys, it's your favorite like short actor.
Yeah, like it's kind of like in those movies where they try to kind of modify the person's weight or have them put on a mask or something like that while they did a cameo. Like their voice is recognizable, but they try to make them look like it wasn't them, which actually in a way can deter the character a little bit. Because then people are more amazed with the fact or distracted by the fact that this is someone else entirely.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's true. And then also I feel like even like after the movie came out, I feel like there's a lot of information that's revealed about like, oh, like when like half the people in the world died, like you don't know, so there's some random characters just like, oh, did Natalie Portman's character die? Like who the hell cares? Like why are like the directors answering this question? And then also like the whole thing where it's like everyone that died basically comes back. Like I mean, I guess it's kind of expected, but like
Yeah.
I remember watching, I was like, damn, that was pretty like heavy. And then it's like, oh wait, they all come back. Never mind. Like that kind of sucks. Like it's very.
I get. I think there's a much heavier. This is weird to say because like Avengers, like Infinity War itself already had a pretty big shoe to fill, but I think like whatever Avengers 4 is going to have like an even bigger shoe to fill because it's going to have to kind of like live up to the fact that it's just basically not going to have to fuck up bringing everyone back, because if they do it like How I Met Your Mother style, where the end of the thing just like ruins everything that came before, that movie will be universally hated.
Yeah, but still probably one of the more successful movies of all time.
Oh, it'll make a ton of money. It'll make an incredible amount of money, but like we've said, like whenever someone always makes good money, it doesn't always result in like the movie actually being super appreciated.
Yeah,
an example of that is like the first Jurassic World, or the movie made, I think it was like the biggest opening of time and everything like that, and made a ton of money. But not everyone that watched, and we're not talking about critics, like just people in general, it was kind of divided. People all went to watch it because it was a sequel to Jurassic Park in a weird way, but like it didn't mean that everyone liked it.
Yeah, I think there's also something with like a contrarian to or seeing like Jurassic World being like hearing was so terrible and seeing it not being like this was awful, like it wasn't like the greatest Jurassic Park, but it was like something. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, definitely this newer Avengers movie will have a lot to keep up to, but I think in general, like the Avengers movies are safe bets. But I think, I mean, recently I think we've seen a lot of good Marvel MCU movies. Yeah, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out, which I don't know, I'm not super hyped about, but it's something. It'll explain why Ant-Man wasn't in this movie. And we have Captain Marvel coming up later. We'll see how that interacts. But like, I don't think either one at the moment I'm particularly looking forward to.
I'm actually really excited about Captain Marvel, but like I have almost no real interest in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like this could have been something that they could have done over like a 10 or 15 minute talk in one of the movies, like a conversation, and I would have been fine with it. Like I don't see the reason why they need to explain this entire thing.
Yeah, like, I guess the first one did well enough. I remember it like exceeded expectations or whatever for sales. I mean, Paul Rudd was a great actor and stuff, Michael Douglas and Michael Pena. But it was just like I don't know, like watching the movie again, like I liked it okay the first time, and it was like the second time I was kind of like, this really wasn't like anything special.
No, it was just a pretty funny movie. Like it was a pretty funny normal movie, and that's one of the things that I said when we were doing the Infinity War, the MCU episode, was like, this is a movie that I could have done without. Like it's nothing that I until I did the MCU marathon again, it wasn't something that I rewatched. It isn't really something that I would even again rewatch if it's like on TV or something like that. I found it super fun to watch it the first time around, and that's about it. Because apart from that, it's just a superhero comedy, like a good superhero comedy. There's no doubt about that, but like it's not necessary. It's just it's not a need, it's a want. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think the problem with this comedy thing is that, in general, like I think the calling card for Marvel movies is like light-hearted movies for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like super dark and dreary like a DC movie. But I think like making a comedy out of a movie that's already supposed to be like lighthearted, it just kind of falls flat in its face unless it like pushes some boundaries. I wouldn't say this is like a colossal failure. It's just something that's not like super like, oh, I want to see the next one of this. It's like they're really making another one of this is really like how I feel.
I'm on your side for that. Like, I don't know. I still just don't really get, like, they could have gone somewhere else with this. Like, they could have, there's other superheroes that they could have maybe brought in, or maybe they could have done something to do with, like, a slightly more out there storyline. But unless this is going to contribute to the larger scheme of things, like, in a pretty strong way, I think that Ant-Man and the Wasp is kind of going to be a detriment to Infinity War.
Yeah, it'll really be important how it ties it in. But do you think there's a possibility to affect your opinion of Infinity War if it's something like really like?
No, I think my opinion of Infinity War is pretty much going to still be the same, even after Ant-Man and the Wasp comes out. But like, I'm saying, this is how I would kind of view it. I think it would be a great thing to do, because the last thing that you see is the Captain Marvel. What's the term for it? Like not the cameo, but like the pager call to Captain Marvel. To have Captain Marvel be the very next movie, and then if you really want to do a sequel to Ant-Man, because it's a requirement for Avengers 4, then you do the sequel to Ant-Man, and then that leads into whatever Avengers 4 is going to be. That would be a good way to introduce, like, the theory is that like Ant-Man can break the Infinity Gauntlet by going into the quantum realm and then expanding while he's inside the glove and just breaking the glove or something like that, something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's like something that I read online. So something like if that's what they're trying to introduce, I think it would be. I think it's just, I don't know, the way that they've kind of put the layout of the movies. It could have been done better.
Also, just speaking of Captain Marvel, it seems a little odd that they've taken this long to finally have a female leading Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Like, I think of one, like, I don't know if this is like in not retaliation, maybe kind of a retaliation of DC's Wonder Woman, or they had this planned down the pipeline. I know they have their whole mapped out schedule. I don't know if you know or not.
No, like, I know that they've been discussing Captain Marvel for a decent amount of time, but it was definitely after the discussion for Wonder Woman. Because Wonder Woman was under discussion, I'd say probably around the time of when either Winter Soldier was releasing or maybe even earlier. Like, actually, I'd say Wonder Woman was probably under discussion by the time Man of Steel came out and did, a decent amount of box office. Like, it made a decent amount of box office revenue. So it was definitely a way to like kind of be like, we can also do a female superhero movie, et cetera, et cetera. They definitely dropped the ball on taking this long to get a Captain Marvel movie, especially with the amount of demand that was there for a Black Widow movie, which would have been an incredible movie, and like had they done it before Red Sparrow, and then Red Sparrow came out, which is basically similar to the Black Widow origin story, except they fucked it up so bad that like the interest is kind of waning because of that.
Yeah, I think a Black Widow, she just like her lack of powers and kind of her like almost so it gets that spy like whole aesthetic. I think it's just like it's like an overplayed thing where it wouldn't have as much novelty as something like Captain Marvel or maybe another female superhero if they wanted to bring one in. I mean, I feel like the cool thing that Marvel does, like the one thing I like about them is they bring in like more random superheroes. Like a thing like Iron Man and like Thor weren't big names until now. I don't really care.
Like, I think there was a discussion about like bringing in Squirrel Girl or something like that.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing about that.
But like the reason why I kind of have I don't know. I would have loved to seen Black Widow, or not even an origin movie, but a movie about her in the Cold War, or about a movie about her getting recruited to Shield and how she ended up leaving whatever she was a part of before Shield and then ended up joining Shield. Like just that entire thing, the introduction of Hawkeye into her life and how their friendship developed. Like these kind of things, it could have been incredibly interesting because like my favorite, well, not my favorite, but one of my favorite Marvel movies is Winter Soldier, where the selling point isn't that Captain America is in the movie or that there's superheroes in the movie. The selling point was that it dealt like it was a very good spy thriller. It was an incredibly good spy thriller, and that's something that they could have really done well with a well-written Black Widow story. Like if you look at Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, if you look at hell, even Bridge of Spies. What was it? It was Tom Hanks' Bridge of Spies?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't a movie I really even liked. I thought it was an average movie. It was a pretty interesting to watch, but it still did incredibly well. You can also compare it to the point where, like, if they don't want, they obviously wouldn't want to go as serious as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. You look at Man from U.N.C.L.E., which went a very comedic / action route with the spy thriller of during Cold War times and things like that, but it was still a super fun movie. So if you find that middle ground between the two of them, it could have been a really well done movie, and it could have been comparable to a really good origin story.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I was just wondering how that fit in. It'd be more just like for the sake of just giving her character more depth and
giving her character more of a depth, kind of get if there was a sacrificial aspect to her character later on towards the end of the series or something like that, it would be super useful.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I just don't love the idea of that. I mean, I understand, like the whole thing of the Winter Soldier was that he really wasn't even Captain America for most of it. He's kind of like undercover in a way. And it made the movie, it was a thrilling movie regardless. But I don't know. I feel like a more female superhero, I think would be more appropriate in this case. I don't know.
No, I get where you're coming from for that as well. Like that's definitely something I get. If we're gonna have to go down that route, that's the thing. Like it's hard to bring in a non-established hero into the movies and then have that person fit in without there being some kind of like a connection in a way.
Yeah, but I definitely think they need like those kind of side characters like Falcon or Hawkeye to kind of be in the background and have like continuity, not necessarily need an origin. Like no one really cares what the hell Hawkeye does, like just shoots arrows or whatever. But I feel like it's needed for the sake of just like having an extra character, just like to fill out the roster, but not necessarily like I don't need to make a movie about him. Like he's already like not that he's established, but like he's just there. Like it's just like deal with it.
Like I think they would have to like really dig deep to get like a female superhero. That's one of the things that I'm realizing. Like the more that I think about it, the most of the names that I have in my head when it comes to like Marvel, what do you call it? Like Marvel female superheroes, they're either in the X-Men or mostly in the X-Men or the Fantastic Four, or they're in the TV show with like Jessica Jones or something like that. Jessica Jones or Elektra.
Yeah.
So like that's what makes it super hard for them because they'll have to like really dig deep. Because if we're going to talk about like the biggest female Marvel superheroes, we've got Storm, who's in the X-Men. We've got Rogue, who's in the X-Men. We've got Kitty and people like that who are all in the X-Men, or Jean Grey. Then you bring into account like people like what's her name, Susan Storm, who's Fantastic Four, who's probably one of the other most well-known people. So this is where it kind of like gets harder and harder to find. Then they would have to go with characters like Moondragon or like Namora. I can't even really think of any other characters. But Emma Frost is also X-Men, and so is Domino is also. I think they already brought Domino in Deadpool too. So like that's where I think it just gets harder and harder to find that superhero without them having a direct connection in.
Yeah, definitely true.
So I think they definitely could have done more with what they had at that point. Like I don't think that issue does not really happen in DC, mainly because A, they have the rights to all of the characters, but B, because of the amount of female, like kind of female superhero characters that are there. Like if they want to go with the main like traditional superhero route, you obviously have Wonder Woman, who's like the go-to, what do you call it? Like the go-to female superhero when it comes to like the traditional superhero. But then you can also go with people like Supergirl, Hawkgirl, Power Girl, Starfire, Black Canary. All of these people, if you want to go a darker magic route, then you can go with Zatanna, Raven. If you want to go with like, it just keeps going and going because there's enough characters. You have Catwoman, and they're kind of doing that with like the Sirens of Gotham, something like that.
What is that, like a TV show?
It's a movie that they're doing, which is going to be like kind of like anti-hero-ish female superheroes, like where it's going to be Catwoman, Poison Ivy. I think they're going to have Zatanna, Batwoman, and Black Canary. Well, I might be missing like a couple of names here and there, or I might have switched out a couple of names, but I think that's kind of what they're going with, like a five of like women superhero team.
Well, I guess it could be interesting. We'll see how DC handles it.
That's the main thing, like because these are characters that are honestly even pretty well established when it comes to like below average CW shows, which I used to love as a early on, but now they've kind of hit their I guess like storytelling issue. But yeah, I think that I definitely think they dropped a heavy ball with like at least I know I would have loved to have seen a Black Widow movie, or I would have also loved to seen just something different, like bring in a character that's already been established and like do something with them.
Yeah, they could have possibly done that with it.
I think they could have actually honestly done a pretty good post-war story with Agent Carter instead of making it into like a piece of shit TV show.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had to make some sacrifices in certain areas.
Yep. But yeah, I think we delved a lot into Infinity War, and then we went on a Marvel sidetrack and everything like that. But yeah, like for me, Infinity War definitely cracked my top 3 Marvel movies. At this point, if I had to rate it, it would probably go with like Iron Man being number 1, Winter Soldier being number 2, Infinity War being number 3, and then Guardians of the Galaxy being pushed down to number 4.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of my rankings because in order it's always tough because I liked I think it is like at least a top 5 for me, but I liked Winter Soldier, Black Panther, original Guardians of the Galaxy, Civil War I also enjoyed. So I think Infinity War is definitely up there somewhere in the top 5. So I still like I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. It just I don't know. Maybe it wasn't as good as like I don't know. It was good, just not like mind-blowingly good. It was better than it, though, I'd say.
I think one of the biggest things that sold me for me, the reason why I ended up liking it so much was like I just really liked the way that they kind of handled Thanos. That was the main thing.
Yeah, it felt darker, but not too dark. And it was also very entertaining.
Yeah, I think they played that. I think they played with the tone really well. That's one thing. Like, I'm happy that they didn't have absolute levity in the movie. But yeah, that's a good way to like kind of. That's where we can end our discussion of Infinity War, and we can dive into a slightly different movie, Deadpool 2. You've watched that. I've watched that. I thought. Okay, short summary on my thoughts when it comes to Deadpool 2. Love that they expanded the universe. I thought it was a super fun movie. I didn't have the same impact on me the way that Deadpool did. That's it. Those 3 points summarize my thoughts on it pretty well.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I have a similar opinion to you. The definitely expanding universe is kind of interesting. What was it, the Brad Pitt as Invisible Guy? I thought it was pretty funny. I didn't realize that watching the movie.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, Zazie Beetz as Domino from Atlanta. I thought she was really awesome. Underused, definitely. But I mean, I don't think it's really her like type of her movie. It's obviously all about Deadpool.
Mhm.
But honestly, watching it, I felt that obviously the novelty of Deadpool was gone. So it wasn't like the first one where it kind of hits you and it's like, wow, this like, obviously you know Deadpool, you know how his humor is. So like, you kind of, I had an idea going in, but the movie I thought they executed very well. It was like was it a little raunchy? Like, I think it's not like something you take like your kids to really, even though I'm sure like everyone's seen it at this point. They think that was a superhero movie, but it's reality. Like, they even like very meta announced at the beginning of the movie, like this dude just like sliced someone in half or whatever. But like, I watched the first one before I watched the second one. The first one just like still makes me laugh, like still very entertaining, like just a very fun movie to watch. But I feel like the second one, they try to go like in a weird emotional route at first, like starting with his wife literally being murdered.
Mhm.
And and then he's like in that rage, that classic, like I know like a lot of like people were saying about that, how it's like that classic, oh, the guy is love interest or like family, it's murdered, so then they go on this murderous spree. But I feel like that never really resonated at all with me. Like, I was like, damn, that sucks. You lost your wife. And I had those flashbacks, but it was like I didn't feel like particularly like, wow, like I'm super sad for you. Like, and then like with Cable as like the kind of enemy, but not really. Like I know they are friends in the comics. They have a whole Cable and Deadpool comic together.
Yeah.
And Josh Brolin, obviously, pretty cool. I think he had the look looked pretty badass. But I feel like there's no enemy. I guess the whole theme was like the enemy is like, in a way, yourself and how you treat people somewhat. Because that kid who got shot like the fire out of his hands is like the big enemy in a way, but not really.
That also felt very similar to Looper. That's one thing that I started to realize, like, as the movie progressed more, and I'm like, this is getting like way too much into Looper territory.
Yeah, but obviously not as well executed.
Yeah.
And then like in the end, like the whole thing, oh, we could just go back in time and redo everything, and it's like, and they use that to some comedic relief. You saw him shooting himself in the face when he was reading the Green Lantern
Script. Yeah.
That never is not funny. But then it was like, oh, like we're bringing back his wife, doing all this other shit. I feel like it's kind of like, okay, so everything that's been done up to this point is pretty much pointless. Like, he saves that one like random average guy who joined their team.
No, also, like it was fun for comedic relief, but yeah, it did kind of just make the entire, like, his entire character arc in Deadpool 2 was about the fact that like he dealt with the loss of this person, and then like he eventually wanted to just get back to her. So, you know, whatever he was doing every single time was like, okay, I need to A, forgive myself a little bit, B, like deal with this grief, blah blah blah, etc. etc. And but yeah, like I don't know. I didn't really think about it like that at the end of the movie until like right now when you just mentioned it, that when he goes back in time and changes everything, it kind of makes the meaning of the movie pointless. And like the more you think about it, then you realize that, okay, yeah, so they just like ex machina the movie in a way.
Yeah, that was the thing. It's like really more when you think about it. I think it was just done particularly just for like, oh, it's funny, oh, everything's good, back together. But in reality, I think is more or less, yeah, it's just kind of, just like kind of like, wait, like then what's the point of this movie?
Yeah.
I just felt like the emotions didn't resonate that they tried to push a little bit, and then like I didn't get the whole Ryan Reynolds relationship with that kid that shot fire. Like, he was trying to kind of like take care of him, but also like keeping his distance from him. Like, I really did not get what that was supposed to be about. I mean, I was entertained by some moments, but I didn't find myself laughing as much. I think when the novelty was gone, so you pay attention more to like what's going on in the actual movie itself. I honestly wasn't like super entertained by it.
Mm-hmm.
Also felt like Cable was super underdeveloped, and
Cable was not memorable at all. And it's like, no, it's not it's not me saying that Josh Brolin did a bad job or anything like that. It's just like he barely had anything to play with apart from being kind of like a gruff character that's there with a purpose in a way.
yeah, exactly. Like, I did some reading on him like after. That's what I usually do after these movies. I'm like, oh, like new villain, like what's this guy's deal? And it's like, it sounds like a cool backstory, you know, like some dude, a Cyclops son sent to the future, becomes a warrior, comes back, like,
yeah,
badass. But like now he's just like some partially robotic guy with a cool gun. Like, in reality, like, yeah, it just wasn't. I just felt like there was no. I guess the whole enemy is supposed to be like enemy of like grief, I guess, and how to handle it. I guess that was like in a way. what was that movie? I feel like not, I don't know if it's Infinity War. We were just talking about something where it's like the Winter Soldier, where it's like the enemy isn't, I guess, a thing, but almost like an idea in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like that's what I was thinking about. And it's like they're kind of trying to go that way, but I just think they just didn't handle it very well. And like I really did like the original Deadpool. I thought it was like a great, like a very entertaining movie. Like not like the greatest movie I've seen, but I thought certainly like, very funny and entertaining. But I did wish they handled this better. Like I was like very disappointed walking out.
I think it was like Deadpool 2 kind of also. The first Deadpool didn't feel like it felt like a good like Deadpool movie and everything like that, and it felt very comic accurate, but it wasn't like this is a comic book on the screen, whereas Deadpool 2 felt like a comic book on the screen, but almost like a direct translation of it.
What, the last one, the original?
Yeah. The Deadpool 2 felt like a direct translation of a comic book, which like they're both two different mediums, so you can't really like just you can't just copy paste one into the other. You kind of have to transpose it, which is what they did with Deadpool 1, where they made it more cinematic, where they made it like the way that they told the story felt more coherent. It felt like more in the style of a movie. And then you have Deadpool 2, which was like, it didn't feel all over the place, but like it never really satisfied you on any particular level when it came to the story. It just satisfied you with the laughs.
Yeah, and then my other question,
The thing I was
curious as what do they plan to do? Okay, I heard they had a plan for Deadpool 3, but not necessarily like an X-Force plan. And I don't know, like I feel like the X-Force, like I don't
really know if I'm really like getting towards either of them.
Force they kind of basically got rid of in this movie.
Oh, I mean, no, the X-Force thing, like there was no character development except for Domino, which is also extremely minimal. There was no other character development at all, to be honest. Like they kind of just had these characters introduced, showed their faces, made them speak a line, and that was it. I don't know if there's going to be a Deadpool 3 movie, though. I don't know if there's going to be a Deadpool 3 movie. I like, have they talked about it or anything like that?
I thought they were talking about it. I think the second, like I'm just speaking from like whatever, like I'm just making this up basically. I think it did pretty well though. Like I know like all my friends went to see it, like they were super excited about it. And like yeah, I just don't think it, I don't know. I feel like this movie wasn't as good, and I think it's always like hard to compare it to the original, but I just think
like I don't regret spending the $15 to go watch the movie. It definitely gave me my money's worth. It's just like it's not memorable. That's the main thing. Deadpool 1 was a very memorable movie. It's like you could remember stuff from it and things like that. Like Deadpool 2, the main thing that I remember is like it was mainly the post-credit scene. Like I remember some of the stuff from the movie, but like I mainly remember the post-credit scene, and I remember like him what was it? Basically killing his like Deadpool version from X-Men Origins Wolverine.
yeah.
So it's like stuff like that I found to be pretty funny, but nothing really I don't know, stood out to me in that movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when described that way, it's not like I don't think like spending the money was really even worth it at that point. But it's kind of something I guess you see because you're like the first one, like want to show support because you liked it so much. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if this would necessarily hold me back from seeing a third one because
I'm still gonna go see the third one. Like I think that's the thing about fan base building and like just superhero movies or things like that in general is like the moment you're so like I don't know half a fan, then you kind of end up seeing every single one of the movies.
Yeah, if I'm just thinking because like with Avengers, I'm more intrigued to see Avengers 4 now because I heard Avengers 2 was bad. I didn't really like the original one too much, so it's kind of like everyone just saying this is super good, and the new ones I was like I'll give it a shot, and I was like I'm more inclined to see the new one.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that goes. I know I want to see that one as soon as possible because everyone's going to see it and everyone's going to talk about it. You kind of want to watch it.
I mean, I think it's just so in terms of pop culture and like just talking about like for example this podcast being about movies and TV, or there's just the general communications that go along in this circle of film or television. Superheroes are so interwoven like into the thing that it becomes really hard to kind of not watch those movies. I think it's almost like a requirement in order to be in order to have a conversation about something like that.
Yeah, and I also find it like if I want to see something like Annihilation, if someone like you or someone that's really into movies, I have to see it with. It's like, but if I want to see something like more generic, like something with my roommates or some other friends, like Avengers or Deadpool, like very safe bets that they'll want to see it.
Yeah. No, that's definitely the case. So I guess we can summarize it as like we're kind of lukewarm on Deadpool 2.
Yeah, definitely. If you're a more casual viewer, I think you won't mind it as much. But I think there's definitely a drop in quality from the first to the second one.
Yep, I completely agree on that. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just like it's just you just don't get the same feeling that you got out of it, and it's like it suffers from sequelitis. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest point. Like, I feel like kind of like Deadpool loses his charm a little bit, the humor. It's like the same, but it's not as funny. I don't know if it's just because maybe the first time around it was just so novel that when it tries again the second time, it's not like a particularly funny thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of reviews said there's kind of like overloaded the Deadpool thing, the whole like meta-ness and the references. Like I always like those random references. Like when you get them, they're always funny because they're usually pretty modern stuff that anyone would understand. But no, I don't know. I just felt like this one just had potential, but I just think going the emotional route was like the mistake of it, trying to make Deadpool more, I don't know about human is the word, but more like an emotionally driven character, which to be honest does not seem like him. He seems very like lighthearted and just does what he wants really.
Like, no, I mean I'd say Deadpool 1, he's also still basically motivated with the purpose of finding Vanessa and avenging all the shit that happened to him. So he's kind of like an emotionally driven character. It's just like the purpose seems more relevant in the way that it's like tied into a story in Deadpool 1. Whereas Deadpool 2, it felt like, I don't know, the creativity suffered a hit because they were going with these storylines that were way too similar to other movies that are already out there that have done it multiple times.
Well, yeah, that's another thing about the whole like I forgot what the phrase was. The phrase what I mentioned at the beginning, where it's like female like love interest gets hurt or killed, then main character goes in a rage, and it's like that kind of emotion. I feel like kind of falls a little hollow. While in the first one, it's kind of like, oh, he fell in love with this girl and wanted to spend his life with her, and then like all of a sudden he's like dying. It's like I think I bought it more in the first one.
Yeah. One. I think it was just also the fact that we had establishment to Wade Wilson's character before he ended up becoming Deadpool.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of develop an attachment not just to the character of Deadpool, but to like the person behind the suit and things like that.
Right.
I think it was just a little. There was a little too much going on. There was a little too quickly paced, and at the end of it, it kind of suffered in terms of being a memorable movie or something like that, because it was just trying to throw so many things at you that would make you laugh that nothing really stood out, like a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a reasonable opinion on that.
All right, then. That's a pretty solid time to switch over to Solo, because the way that we talked about Deadpool 2 is how I feel about Solo.
Oh boy.
Like, it's okay. You clearly know how crazy I am about Star Wars. Like,
yeah,
I'm a insane fan, and like not like the toxic shitheads. Fuck it, I'm gonna say it out loud. I think it's fucking horrible what Star Wars fandom is doing right now. I think it's just depressing that they kind of depressing and just honestly kind of sad the way that they kind of view the new trilogy as like some kind of a social justice, like I don't know, like push for, like I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like it's essentially just like characters being developed, batons being passed on, because the previous characters are 60 and 70 years old. They're not going to have the sequel trilogy be played by the exact same people that were there 40 years ago.
Yeah, I entirely agree. I think The Hayden as the Last Jedi And the character Rose Tico, like I like she was voted worse than Jar Jar Binks. Like I think there's
That's fucking bullshit, though. Like, how does that make sense? Have you Jar Jar Binks was there was nothing to Jar Jar Binks. It was
people just hated that movie, but like I didn't get the hate. Like I kind of liked the movie that was like slightly different, and like I can see it from his perspective. But like there's so much necessarily hate. Like I don't get it. Like
I get like that was the main thing. The main thing about Force Awakens was that I completely agree. I loved the movie, and I went to watch it 4 fucking times in the movie theater, and then I went to a few more. Like I watched it a few more times once I got the Blu-ray and everything like that. But yes, it was too by the bone. Like it was too by the sorry, not by the bone, by the book, and it followed a very simple format that that the previous, like the prequel, not the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy had. However, that's the point about The Last Jedi, is that it gave its own take. It took a risk, and some things didn't pay off, like the more of the Cantabite sequence or things like that. Those things were a little off at times, even though I appreciated the message that they presented of like, sustainability and realizing like, economic inequality and things like that. It was an interesting thing to talk about. It was an interesting thing to bring up. It felt a little out of place, but I don't hate the movie for it in any way. But everything else in the movie plays incredibly well. The what do you call it? The Luke Skywalker and Luke and Kylo duel, which I know a lot of people complain about the fact that like, it wasn't a traditional lightsaber duel. I don't fucking care. It was a really interesting way to do that. It was an incredibly interesting way to do that. It was really cool to show the fact that this isn't like, he's not going to have this like massive superpower or anything like that. They wrote him into a way that he actually gets to be a Force ghost or something like that in the later movies. The movie had some flaws, but it is nowhere near the worst Star Wars movie. That is one of the most ridiculous things that I've heard come out of, and like, as basically a guy who's been a fan of Star Wars for almost 20 years, God, I got so fucking angry watching all of this stuff happen around The Last Jedi. Like, watching all the hate regarding The Last Jedi, watching all the hate, like, just in particular people that acted in the movie, and like, fuck those people. That was so much bullshit.
Yeah, but, I mean, I'll give the one thing about that. The whole Luke Skywalker being like really irrational seemed to me. Other than that, like I have no complaints really. Or nothing.
Oh, it's nowhere near a perfect movie, but it was like, here's the thing. I like that it took risks. I like that it presented a different side of Star Wars. I like that it kind of like it was starting to do its own thing. Like, the reason why Star Wars sustained for as long as it did with the expanded universe is that it didn't always follow the same format. Thrawn trilogy, which is one of the best like Star Wars novelizations that exists out there, which I would highly recommend to anyone. These 3 books are fantastic. They're like a combination of adventure and military tactics and like just incredible suspense, and one of the best villains that I've seen written in literature, to be honest. Like, the thing about Thrawn trilogy is like the person that they're facing off against has no force powers, has no real powers. It's just watching powers face off against intellectualism, which is not what Star Wars is. And
yeah, it sounds like a Star Trek type of thing.
Exactly. It's very different from what traditional Star Wars was, but it was so well accepted, which is why it bothers me so much that like any risk or anything that was done differently, showing that, Luke Skywalker, who's a self-trained Jedi, who isn't trained by the traditional methods of Jediism and things like that. It's a self-trained Jedi. So he's obviously going to have moments of weakness or moments of issues and stuff like that. Just because you're the son of the most powerful Jedi that was ever there does not make you just perfect. And the fact that, the comics delved into that, the novels delved into that, they showed that this guy had a dark side to him. And the fact that when the movies try to do that, you kind of criticize the movie on that, saying that, it was just stupid. Like, I think it was like incredibly shallow hate, and then people try to justify that in terms of the writing, even though the writing didn't really present itself like that.
Yeah.
My rant on Last Jedi hate aside, Solo. I went for it. I paid the money for it. I don't regret paying the money for it. I think it was pretty interesting. I think it is miles below how well Rogue One was done, like miles and miles below. And at the end of it, like left me with like, I wasn't overwhelmed, I wasn't underwhelmed, I was just whelmed. Like it was just like, okay, that was interesting, that was fun. It was nice to see, a little bit of background on Han. It was nice to see a little bit of like what he did, what he kind of didn't do. But I literally could have done without this movie at all. And no one misses out by not watching this movie. Like that's the sad part. The sad part about not missing out on Solo is that it does not affect your viewing at all for any of the other Star Wars movies.
Yeah, that's a little disappointing. That's what I've heard for the most part, where it's one of those things that people enjoyed it, but wasn't like so worth seeing. That's kind of where I haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, do I really want to pay money to see this? Like, I feel like no offense to Han Solo, but like I just don't think he's a very I was never like, wow, what did he do like after like before he became this? And I feel like the way they staged the movie had a very heist feel. Yeah, I saw more and more trailers, and the plot seemed to develop. You kind of were like what? Like, why is this like the case? Like, I feel very predictable, and that so many of the characters are in the movies. Like, obviously, like prequels. Like, I feel like the whole bad thing about them is like, oh, right, I know all these guys survive, or this guy doesn't make it. Which I guess like kind of the cool thing about Rogue One, you didn't really know.
Yeah.
With this, there's a lot more characters.
It's kind of a sad thing to say, but like, if you don't want to watch it in the movie theater, just wait till it comes out on Netflix or something like that. And like, I would not, as like such a huge Star Wars fan, I would totally understand why someone would do that.
Yeah, because my thing, what I've seen from successful prequels, unsuccessful prequels, is the unsuccessful ones grasp on the basically like, oh, you like these characters? Here they are when they were younger, doing like before they were cool. Then I think of like comparatively, it's an entirely different genre, but I think of like Better Call Saul pre-Breaking Bad. It's like, here's a character you like, but this is what he did. Nothing Breaking Bad. Like there are a few cameos, but nothing like wow, like they really like are grasping the straws here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, well-written show, and I think Star Wars like overall is pretty solidly done. I mean, maybe minus the prequels in some instances, but I just think that this is more of a fan service type thing for people who didn't necessarily want it. Like I know a lot of people are like Boba Fett's very mysterious, but I mean I'm not too excited about him either. But I heard they're going to make a movie. The director from Logan's, that has me excited.
Yeah, the fact that James Mangold is doing Logan has me pretty hyped. I love the guy's like movies in general. I'm a huge fan of 310 to Yuma. It's one of my favorite westerns ever made, and like it's a remake, which usually people are very critical about. I like it more than the original 310 to Yuma. Yeah. And then he did the Wolverine and he did Logan as well. So like I am pretty excited about Mangold directing Boba Fett. I think he can do westerns incredibly well. I think he can do drama incredibly well. So if we get something like a western drama with Boba Fett dealing with coming out of the Sarlacc pit or something like that, I think he could really fucking knock it out of the park. So that's not something I'm worried about. And it's just that honestly, Boba Fett is something that I'm kind of interested in because I want to see what happens to the guy's character because he's not really discussed a lot after the Sarlacc incident.
Yeah, he has that kind of menacing look to him. The mask, everyone always like the guy the mask, but like too, you really don't see anything from him, and then he just comes like collecting Han Solo.
Like he had an element of mysticism around him and things like that, which would be great to. Like, I don't want a prequel to it. I don't think we really need a prequel to it, but I would love to see a continuation of this guy's story. And then in the continuation in the story, we can find out more about his character, as opposed to let's go back when he was a kid and see how he started working for Jabba the Hutt or something like that.
Yeah, and this movie, Solo, was the second of the three Star Wars stories, right?
Yeah, second of the three anthology films, which I'm still like a huge fan of Rogue One. I fucking love that movie. I love the fact that it did. It was a war movie, but it was a pretty bleak war movie, which kind of showed how people are viewed as just numbers and things like that, and how there's like dark things that happen on both sides, and then place it in the Star Wars universe.
True. Yeah. And I really did like it as one of the unique Star Wars movies and it actually like worked very nicely.
Yeah.
No big. There's no real Jedi. Like minus the ending with Darth Vader, which I thought was like, even though it was kind of fan service, thought it was really cool.
And when they showed when they showed Vader, it was for a purpose. It was just to like, this is the Vader that you never really got to see. We're gonna give him to you.
Yeah, but was there any type of element in Solo that had that similar type of feel? Like you're like, this is really cool, this and that, or like, I know Lando Calrissian. The big thing was like Donald Glover is playing him, and he's been on a huge, successful, with Atlanta and the music and everything. He's been having a lot of success.
Yeah, but like honestly, there was nothing. I think he did a really good. I think he did a pretty decent job in terms of playing the character and everything like that. But he wasn't given a lot to play with. Like he was there in the movie, but seriously, like there was no. I can't think of any real like development to Lando's character. I can't think of any real development to any of the characters except for Han's character in the movie.
Was it like?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Like, was there also like an origin of like how you meet Chewbacca, or was it kind of just established that they were like boys at that point?
No, they definitely have to do with like meeting Chewbacca and things like that. But I think that's the main thing, that they kind of developed Han in the movie, and then they kind of tried to toss visuals at you and like these like cool throwbacks or something like that of like connecting and things like the dice that he has in the Millennium Falcon, like the history, like a little bit of history behind them. But it felt way too much of, this is where the thing that you like in the sequel or in the original trilogy comes from. And
yeah,
that's just like, that's something that someone can do with a tweet.
Yeah, exactly. It's like something no one needed. But I know a lot of people like, oh, like, they're doing this, but everyone wants to see like, oh, the Obi-Wan Kenobi story or something. But yeah. I feel like I don't know if that would be as like, rehearsal wouldn't fit in the Star Wars story 3 movies, because this is in between like
no, Obi-Wan's understandable. Obi-Wan is like, we have 20 years worth of material to play with. Like,
but at the same time, I think between episodes 3 and 4, he is mostly in exile.
Mm-hmm.
I think they want more of like a Clone Wars Obi-Wan, or a badass, so to speak. But like, I just feel like,
well, I have absolutely no interest in seeing an Obi-Wan before the end of episode 3, because we already have that. We have 3 prequel movies with Obi-Wan in it, and then we have 2 original, or actually 3 original trilogy movies, because he's there even in Return of the Jedi. And we have 3 original trilogy movies where we get to see Obi-Wan in his, like kind of like his not mantis, but like, what's the fucking term for, like, his kind of a monk stage with like, the more philosophical Obi-Wan, and we got to see the badass Obi-Wan. But what I want to see is like the things that this guy had to deal with. Like, there's so much at play with the death of the Jedi Order, the loss of Anakin, the development of like Luke as the last true hope, the things that Tatooine is just like a place in the middle of nowhere. There's just so much that they have to play with that they can make a fantastic character piece.
Yeah, I think of that more along the lines of Logan, like a Western almost.
Exactly. I'm literally, like, my mind is literally just going Logan and Star Wars. That's it.
Yeah, but like even then, I feel like, I guess I couldn't incorporate some other more random characters, maybe like Yoda and stuff. But I'm just wondering how many characters there were. The way they make it seem is almost like after episode 3, he kind of self-exiles himself and kind of doesn't like really talk to anyone. So I'm sure they could twist it somehow and add some more depth. But I don't know. Like, I personally think a cool story would be Darth Vader in that time, because he was basically just on like a murderous rampage, basically taking over the galaxy. Like, I remember playing like was Force Unleashed, and like that first level week where you're just like murdering.
You kind of just seeing him hunt down Jedi. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like the most powerful Jedi, and he's just is super cool. Like, everyone likes Darth Vader. So,
like, what I want to see is that I know while watching Rebels, one of my there was a lot of shit that I really liked in Rebels, especially season 2, 3, and 4. But there was one fantastic part that I got to see was I got to see an animated version of Obi-Wan and Maul fighting it out for the last time.
Oh, that's cool.
And what it showed you was that Obi-Wan wasn't the same aggressive guy as what he was during the prequel trilogy. Like Obi-Wan changed over his time, and like I don't know. For me, it would be a fantastic like philosophical movie about like a philosophical and psychological movie about how he changes his opinion on what should be done and things like that. This would be purely like for a normal moviegoer. What it would be this is a very like meaningful movie or something like that. For a Star Wars fan, watching this movie would be like a perfect interconnection between everything. And I think it would not only heighten Obi-Wan's character in the prequel trilogy, I think it would incredibly heighten his character in the sequel, in the original trilogy.
Yeah, he definitely felt like he was very, or maybe just like right amount. The other characters, the rest of the story were really kind of bringing him down.
Yeah. So, anyway, like those were my thoughts on it, and I think at the end of it, like Solo was. If I have to give numerical ratings, like this is a pretty decent way to just end it off. Is actually that actually makes it harder, but Infinity War is I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10 for me. There's a couple of things that I found a little off-putting, but like at the end of it, I really enjoyed the movie, and I went for it repeatedly because I really enjoyed it. Deadpool 2, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10. And then Solo, I would give it like a 6.5 out of 10. I don't regret seeing any of these movies. I don't regret paying for watching these movies, which is why I'm giving them all like over a 5 out of 10. And then the extra points are just, Solo only gets like a 1 extra point because of like a little bit of stuff as to the acting in the movie, and a little bit of like there was one particular payoff in the movie that I really did enjoy, and that was definitely ham-fisted. But for a fan like me, I just loved watching that happen on screen. And then it's the same thing with Deadpool 2, where like the movie was a pretty decent movie, which is why you can give it like a 2.5 out of the 5 extra stars that are there, but nothing particularly special about it. So yeah, 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10, or 6 out of 10.
Okay, I'm not gonna rate Solo. I haven't seen it yet, so
Yeah.
that'd just be speculative. But Infinity War, I'd say like 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't want to give it a full 9. Like maybe 8.5. I really did. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a very entertaining movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the characters were like not as developed as they made it seem, but I still think they were like enough to the point where it was actually enticing. It wasn't like, wow, this like mindless villains and destroy everything. So I liked that angle. And it was also darker, but still not too dark. And it was a very nice balance between that and like the obviously they're classic one-liners every now and then, and I don't think they went too overboard with that.
Yeah.
Deadpool 2, I think I'd give it like a 6, maybe a 6.5. I mean, I just thought it was kind of. I don't think it's unnecessary. They definitely needed to make a sequel, but I just think they handled the wrong elements, and the lack of like an actual like villain. I think really kind of. I don't think he's a specific villain, but like even like the idea, I think is like a decent could work, but I just don't think they really had anything that really was like antagonizing. Like yes, the loss's wife is bad, but it wasn't like. I just don't think it struck me as like dramatically as they hoped it would.
Yeah.
And if it did, I think it'd be a very, very different movie. If it was supposed to take that more emotional route, I don't think it's as funny as they wanted to be. The show is so like so overloaded with like these ridiculous one-liners. But I mean, I think they hit a good balance in the first one, but this one just felt a little like it fell flat in its face.
Okay. Yeah.
I just think the first one also had like, where that guy Ajax basically took everything from him. Like he gave him power, but also took like, his looks and all that stuff. It's like a weird balance. It's like he helped him, but also in a way like hurt him.
Yeah.
So I think that made it a little more complex, like his dilemma. But that's my opinion for both those movies.
No, that basically sums up. Like, it's very similar to what I thought. Like, apart from the fact that I liked Infinity War a little bit more than you did, I think we were pretty much the same on Deadpool 2. And though, like, my thoughts on Solo, like that's basically what I had at the end of it. Was I was just lukewarm on it.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, I think that's it for this episode of Geek View Podcast. I'm hopefully going to be able to record what's the term for it? A gaming episode for the first time this week. So I might actually be able to put out a couple of episodes together within the span of like 3 to 4 days.
It'll be nice to make up for the however many weeks you haven't.
I think I took almost like 3 weeks off from the last episode, maybe even a month. But again, I was moving between cities, all the stuff, starting up a new job. All of those things kind of like, just fuck up your schedule. And
Yeah.
then obviously I was also being lazy and playing video games a lot. So that kind of pushed it back as well. And yeah, that's about it. Hope everyone enjoyed this episode and see you for the next one.